It's funny to think now, but when Disney first took over the license for Star Wars, it was actually quite an exciting time, thinking that obviously Disney could apply their resources and money to produce all sorts of incredible films and, of course, merchandising. So it was quite exciting when they announced the Elite series. This was a range that was split into two lines. There was a 7-inch scale die-cast line, and then there was also the 12-inch or 1/6 scale line at an affordable price point, which was absolutely fantastic. These figures looked highly detailed with fabric clothing and accessories, and they looked amazing. And although most of these initial figures in the line were promoting really the Disney films, so we had a range for obviously The Force Awakens and then also Rogue One, they did start to venture into the classic films as well, which was the most exciting to me at the time. And they produced just two figures in this wave, which was Darth Vader and Princess Leia. Sadly, it seems that this line wasn't very successful. They also tried to do something similar for Marvel. They released a Black Widow and a Captain America in this scale and style, but sadly they didn't seem to sell that well and the line was cut short. So today I'm going to have a look at the Princess Leia and Darth Vader to see just what this line was like. So here is the Leia out of their packaging, and straight away, visually, spot on. I think this is fantastic. I think it's a brilliant likeness. The tailoring for the outfit is brilliant. It's a really nice fabric, and it's totally captured the costume perfectly. Obviously there's not a lot of detail on this outfit, but what is there is great. I love the belt with the little details on there. Also her boots, which we'll look at a bit later. And also, of course, her blaster that she has there. So there's lots of attention to detail, and it just looks fantastic. Now, she does have the hood, which she can lift up as well. Sadly, the only thing that lets this down really is that it isn't articulated. It doesn't have a wire in there, which would have been really useful to sort of make sure it stays over her head and could have been shaped. As it is, it's just very floppy. So you're relying on gravity and a bit of good luck, really, for it to stay in place. So I'm not very good at styling this one out, so for me, she's probably going to have her hood down most of the time. Now, in terms of the articulation, she has a ball-jointed neck, so she can turn her head all the way around from side to side. She can look really far up and really far down, so the neck articulation is incredible. She has a ball-jointed shoulder as well, so she can lift her arms up, she can move them to the side, and of course they are double-jointed as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So she also has that bicep swivel there, which is brilliant. So huge range of motion there, and of course she also has those ball-jointed wrists, and these are the ones that are very similar to those that we see on Mafex figures. So they can turn either side, and they have a huge range of motion in them. So they look absolutely brilliant. She does have the ball-jointed diaphragm as well, which is fantastic. So this gives her a good range of motion when it comes to leaning backwards. Not strong going forwards, but from side to side, very good motion there. So again, it feels like you're getting excellent articulation in this figure for lots of different poses, which is great. In terms of the legs, as you can see, she has those ball-jointed hips there, so her legs kick all the way forwards to the side, and of course she has the double-jointed knees as well, which is absolutely brilliant, and can get good range of motion there. Now, looking at the ankle, what you'll see is, again, like Mafex, they have that ball-jointed sort of ankle there, so can look a bit unseemly, especially as the boot obviously rides up. It's great for giving us that range of articulation, but obviously you do need to make sure that you push the boot down or up. But obviously it can swivel 360 degrees and in and out, which is great. Likewise, she also has some toe articulation as well, which is unexpected but cool. In terms of accessories, she has her blaster, her pistol, and an alternative pair of hands. Now, I would caution that the wrists can be a little bit limp, so be careful with that ball joint there, because when you have the blaster in it, which is quite heavy, it will have a tendency, obviously, for gravity to work it down. So that's something you might want to keep an eye on. But she does hold it very nicely. It fits very snugly into her hand, into her grip there, which is nice. But as I say, that ball-jointed wrist there is a bit flimsy, so you have to keep an eye on that. But pleasingly, her figure will reach the trigger, which is great. I really like that. It doesn't quite go all the way, but it does get there, which is fine. And the actual detailing on the blaster itself is fantastic. You can see that little dash of silver there in the chamber, which is great, and obviously it's got that little wash there to make it look worn and lived in, which is fantastic. And likewise, her pistol is really nicely done as well. Again, it has the silver accents there on the paint apps, which are great, and her finger does manage to just about reach the trigger there. The only thing I'd say with this is that actually her hand isn't quite wide enough. I feel like the grip on the blaster is much smaller, so it fits really nicely, it fits perfectly into that hand, which is great. But the grip on the pistol is a different story, like it's much thicker and much wider, and that makes it harder for it to hold it, and looks a bit clunky. But I also wanted to spend a second just talking about the likeness as well, because I feel like this is such a strong likeness for a figure at this price point. I really like they opted to go for the real hair. I wouldn't have thought this would have worked, to be honest. I would have advised going for like a hard plastic for the buns, because obviously it's such an iconic look, and using real hair usually goes awry. But this looks great. They've managed to capture the lifelike quality of the hair, and it works perfectly. This looks so much better than the plastic version would have done. I actually think they've done an incredible job here, so they have to get top marks for this. So next we have the Darth Vader, and wow, I mean, they've done such an amazing job on the presentation of this character. Like it's intense. I'm amazed at what quality this figure is. So the first thing I should probably point out is that yes, his outfit is leather, or at least it feels like leather. The texture's lovely, so his arms and his legs definitely has that leather feel, which is amazing. Obviously the cape is fabric, as well as his tunic as well. Just looks fantastic. The head sculpt is spot on. I think the dimensions of that look brilliant, and it just looks outstanding, really genuinely outstanding. And again, for the price point, for a 1/6 scale version of Darth Vader, this, it is not Hot Toys, but it is surprisingly close. I have to say, like, it's very, in terms of the costume itself, just incredible, and it just looks fantastic on the shelf. As you can see, there's just so much detail in here on his boots, on his tunic, on his those buttons that he has on his belt and his chest there. It all looks amazing. Even going as far as to give him a metal chain for his to hold his cape together. I just think it's fantastic. Really very, very impressive. A lovely attention to detail, and really feels like they've gone the extra mile in producing this figure. It just looks spot on. As you can see here, some close-up shots of the detailing that you can see on his chest plate and his belt, and just looks great. Now they've also given him a little hook for his lightsaber, so he does come with the unignited lightsaber. Again, loads of lovely little detail on it, which I think is great. Although the only thing I would notice is that it does hook on, like, literally standing up. I would have thought it would be the other way around, so it should clip at the bottom. I might be wrong, maybe that's screen accurate, I'm not sure, but that feels off. But aside from that, again, I do love the tunic, that's actually cloth and not plastic. The articulation is less on this figure. Obviously, it is solid plastic, his head, so it doesn't really move up or down. It doesn't have the same neck joint that Princess Leia does, but it does obviously rotate 360 degrees, which is nice. Very nice touch is that the rubber shoulder pads actually lift up, so it doesn't hinder the articulation in the arms. He does have the same arm articulation as the Princess Leia, which in theory is absolutely fantastic. However, I will point out that the leather does tend to hinder how much you can get out of the motion of that figure. So he does have the double jointed elbows, but as you can see, it doesn't quite bend all the way. His wrists are slightly different as well. Obviously, they do swivel 360 degrees, but they do not bend in or out. And that's because the gauntlet obviously restricts that access because it's a hard rubber. Again, he does have the same ab articulation, so he can swivel from side to side quite nicely. Again, not as much as the Princess Leia, but it is there, it's quite strong. And he does have obviously a good range of motion when it comes to going backwards, and a little bit going forwards. So just as we saw with Princess Leia there, again hindered slightly by the garments that he's got. He does have the same obviously leg articulation, hip articulation there, so his legs can go forward a good distance, back a little bit, and can thankfully kick out as well. So that's great. Lots of possibilities there, which is fantastic, and thankfully isn't hindered too much by the costume, which is great. He does have the double jointed knees, and pleasingly can get them to kick back a fair distance, which is great. Likewise, he's got the same toe articulation and the same boot articulation there at the bottom of the ankle. Again, much less that you can do because of the shin pads he's got on, but again, it is there, which is fantastic. Also, his cape obviously tends to sit behind him, but he can bring it forwards as well, which is really nice. So you can get good amount of material out of this cape, which I think is fantastic, and you know, you can put him in various different poses. So I think they've done a great job. He can lift his helmet off. For a moment, I did think when I first got him, I thought, oh, maybe they actually have the Anakin head underneath, and maybe they go that extra mile. But they don't. You can literally take it off. I'm not sure if you're supposed to, but you can do. But yeah, there's nothing on the back there to show the Anakin head at all, and it doesn't come off any further than this. So you're probably not going to want to do this. You're going to keep that helmet on, but I just wanted to point out that you could do it if you wanted to. Naturally, he's more limited on accessories, but he does come with an alternate pair of hands and gauntlets, his lightsaber fully ignited, and his unignited lightsaber as well, which is great. So ultimately, it feels like you are getting a bargain with this figure. He looks so dynamic in the various poses you put him in. His outfit is incredible, and the attention to detail there is just so pleasing. And yeah, you know, absolutely fantastic. Really love the design of this figure. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And overall, I'd say that is true of both these figures in the line. I think it's such a shame this line didn't go further. I would have loved a Han Solo or a Luke Skywalker, maybe an Emperor, certainly Stormtroopers. It goes on and on and on. This could have been an absolutely amazing line, and I'm so sad that it didn't continue, because I actually adore these figures, and I just think it's a shame they didn't have a longer life on the shelf. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like. And remember to subscribe, as I'll be posting more videos soon.